What if one unexpected moment makes you question everything you thought you knew about love? That morning, Emily sat near the window, the sky heavy with rain, the world outside blurred in shades of gray. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, untouched like so many of her emotions lately. Her husband, Daniel, had left before sunrise for another business trip. He used to kiss her goodbye, whisper something sweet. But now, it was just the sound of the front door closing and silence filling the room. The rain made everything slower, quieter, lonelier. Emily sighed and wrapped her sweater tighter, staring at the street. That's when she heard a knock, a sharp, steady sound that broke the silence. She opened the door to see a young man, maybe in his late 20s. His hair was damp, his jacket wet, and his smile polite yet warm. He held 2 brown bags of groceries. "Delivery for Emily," he said, his voice calm but cheerful. She blinked in confusion. "I didn't order anything," she said. He checked the receipt and nodded. "It says Daniel Morgan, apartment 3B. Daniel must have placed the order. A small surprise, perhaps?" Emily couldn't remember the last time he had done something thoughtful, but the idea softened her expression. "Oh, thank you," she said, taking the bags. But one slipped, and before she could react, the man caught it, his hand brushing lightly against hers. That brief touch, simple, harmless, felt strangely human after so many months of distance. "Got it," he smiled, setting the bag down carefully. "Would you like me to bring the rest in? It's kind of heavy." For a second, she hesitated. Letting a stranger inside felt odd, but there was something gentle in his eyes, something safe. "Sure," she said quietly. He stepped in, wiping his shoes politely. The house smelled faintly of lavender and old memories. While he placed the groceries on the counter, Emily noticed how he looked around, curious but respectful. "You have a nice place," he said. She smiled faintly. "Thanks. My husband's out of town." She didn't mean to mention it, but the words slipped out naturally. He nodded. "Long trip?" She shrugged. "They usually are." He didn't push further. He just smiled in that quiet, understanding way that made her feel seen, not pitied, not judged, just seen. When he was done, she offered him a towel. "You're soaked." "Rain doesn't bother me," he said, laughing lightly. "I actually like it." "Really? Most people hate it." "Yeah?" he said, glancing toward the window. "But sometimes it hides what you don't want others to see." His words lingered. She didn't know what he meant, not fully. But it felt like something she understood deep inside. He handed her the signed receipt. "By the way, I'm Liam." "Emily," she said softly. "Nice to meet you, Emily." When he left, she watched him walk away through the curtain of rain. Just another delivery boy, she told herself. Nothing special. But as she turned back to her empty living room, the echo of his voice stayed with her. Hours passed. She cleaned, cooked, tried to distract herself, but her mind wandered back to that brief conversation. It had been so long since someone talked to her like that. Simple, honest, without the weight of pretense. Later that evening, Daniel called. The conversation was short and cold. "I might be away longer than expected," he said. "Don't wait up for me. No warmth, no care. Just another lonely night." After the call, she sat by the window again. The rain hadn't stopped. She thought of Liam's smile, how genuine it was, how he seemed to notice everything. The way he caught the bag before it fell, how he looked at her like she mattered. For the first time in months, she smiled without forcing it. The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds. She brewed coffee, trying to start the day fresh. Maybe today would feel different. Maybe she'd go for a walk or visit her sister. But just as she picked up her mug, another knock came at the door. Her heart jumped slightly. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened it, and there he was. Liam. The same calm smile, the same curious eyes. But this time there were no grocery bags in his hands. "Morning," he said. "Liam, did I order something again?" she asked, half laughing. He shook his head. "No, not this time." Her confusion deepened. "Then why are you here?" He hesitated for a moment. his eyes meeting hers with quiet sincerity. "I was in the neighborhood," he said softly, "and I just wanted to make sure you were okay." She froze. Her heart caught somewhere between surprise and something else she couldn't name. No one had asked her that question in a long time. For a moment, the world outside went still. No sound, no rain, just two strangers standing in the soft morning light, both hiding loneliness behind polite smiles. Emily didn't know what to say. She wanted to tell him she was fine, that everything was normal. But deep down, she wasn't fine. Not even close, and he could see that. Somehow he already knew. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed on the counter, Daniel's name flashing on the screen. She ignored it. The sound felt like an unwelcome reminder of the life she was supposed to be living. When she looked back up, Liam was still there, waiting for her to say something. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "You shouldn't have come." "Maybe not," he said softly. "But I couldn't help it." Something in his tone made her pulse quicken. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't bold. It was honest. And that honesty scared her more than anything. She glanced at the phone again, still buzzing. When she finally looked back at him, the call had stopped. And for a moment, she realized she didn't want to answer it anyway. Liam took a small step back. "I'll go," he said. "Didn't mean to bother you." But she shook her head slightly, her voice softer now. "You didn't." They stood there in quiet understanding. Two people who shouldn't have crossed paths, yet did. And as he turned to leave, the light from the window fell across his face. That same expression she couldn't stop thinking about since yesterday. The moment stretched longer than it should have. And deep down, she knew this wasn't the last time she'd see him. Because sometimes, the universe sends you people when you least expect them, not to love, but to awaken something you've forgotten inside yourself. Emily closed the door slowly, her hands trembling just enough to reveal the truth she refused to admit. But before she could collect her thoughts, another soft knock came. She opened the door again. And there he was, still standing there, rain starting to fall once more. "I forgot to tell you," Liam said, holding out a folded paper. "Your receipt." Their eyes met. And in that quiet, electric pause, both of them knew. This story had only just begun. The next morning, when Emily checked her phone, she found a message she didn't expect. From Liam, and it simply read, "Can I see you again?" What if the person you least expected began to understand you better than the one you married? Emily stared at the message on her phone. "Can I see you again?" Her heart raced. The words were simple, polite, harmless on the surface. Yet something inside her stirred. She didn't reply, not yet. She told herself it was just curiosity, not longing. But curiosity has its own way of becoming something deeper. All day she tried to ignore the thought. She folded laundry, answered emails, cooked dinner for one. Every few minutes, her eyes would drift back to her phone. By evening, she finally typed, "Why?" His reply came within seconds. "Because you looked like someone who needed a friend." That one sentence did something Daniel's years of affection no longer could. It made her feel seen. The next afternoon, there was another knock at the door. Her heartbeat skipped. She wasn't expecting him. But when she opened it, there he was again, Liam, holding a small paper bag and that same nervous smile. "I brought you something," he said. "Just some muffins from the bakery down the street. Thought you might like them." Emily stood there frozen, unsure what to say. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "I know," he said, smiling softly. "That's why I did." It had been years since anyone had done something for her without a reason. She stepped aside quietly, letting him in. The house felt warmer with someone else's presence. They sat in the kitchen, sipping tea, the air filled with the quiet rhythm of rain tapping on the window. He asked about her life, not in the way people do to fill silence, but with genuine curiosity. She found herself talking about her job, her childhood, even the things she missed about her old self. Liam listened like every word mattered. And when he spoke about his life, how he worked late nights, cared for his mother, and still dreamed of opening a small cafe one day. Emily realized he carried a quiet strength beneath his simplicity. Hours passed without either noticing. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. It was a strange relief, a reminder that she was still capable of joy. But just as easily as it began, reality returned. Her phone buzzed. Daniel again. She stared at it, frozen. "You should get that," Liam said softly. She shook her head. "It's fine." He studied her face for a moment, then asked quietly, "Does he make you happy?" The question hit harder than she expected. She looked down at her mug, unable to answer. "He used to," she said finally. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, real, filled with everything neither dared to say. When Liam stood to leave, Emily walked him to the door. "Thanks for the muffins," she said, forcing a small smile. "Anytime," he said, but his voice was quieter now. As he stepped into the rain, he paused and turned back. "You don't have to pretend everything's okay just because you're married." The words lingered long after he was gone. That night, Daniel called again. She expected the usual short conversation, but this time his voice was distracted, distant. "I might stay another week," he said. "Things are complicated here." She wanted to ask where here was, but she didn't. She already knew the truth she'd been trying to avoid. "Okay," she said simply. After the call, she stared at the reflection in the window. The woman looking back didn't seem like her anymore. She wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of waiting for love that no longer came home. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Liam. Couldn't sleep. "Hope you're okay." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she replied. "I'm fine. Just thinking," he responded almost instantly. "About what?" She hesitated, then typed the truth. About how strange it feels to be lonely when you're not alone. There was a pause before his reply came. "That's the worst kind of lonely." Something about his honesty broke through her defenses. She didn't want to fall into anything. Not emotionally, not romantically. But she couldn't deny how natural it felt to talk to him. How his words reached the spaces Daniel's silence never touched. Days turned into small conversations. Texts, shared jokes. Little details that only two people who listened closely would know about each other. But with every message, a quiet guilt grew inside her. She hadn't done anything wrong, yet she knew she was walking a thin line. One morning, she saw Liam waiting outside the grocery store. He smiled when he spotted her. "You're here early," he said. "Couldn't sleep," she said. They walked together down the aisles, talking about nothing and everything. The smell of coffee beans, his mother's favorite pie recipe, her old college memories. To anyone watching, they looked like two ordinary people shopping. But inside, Emily felt something changing, a feeling she couldn't name, something between comfort and danger. When they reached the counter, their hands brushed again. Neither moved away this time. Later that day, Emily sat alone in her car, staring at her phone. Her messages with Liam scrolled endlessly. Small pieces of connection, too innocent to be wrong, too deep to be harmless. That evening, Daniel called again, his voice hurried. "Can't talk long," he said. "I'll call tomorrow." "Sure," she replied. But he didn't call tomorrow, or the day after. By the third day, she gave up expecting it. Instead, she found herself typing another message to Liam. "Are you free today?" He replied with a single word. "Always." When he arrived, she noticed the way his eyes softened when he saw her, like he understood everything she wasn't saying. "Rough day?" he asked. "Just empty," she admitted. They talked for hours again, but this time there was an unspoken closeness, a tension neither created nor avoided. The rain returned, drumming gently on the windows, and Emily found herself wishing the moment wouldn't end. But moments like that never last long. Her phone buzzed again, Daniel's name flashing on the screen. She hesitated, then silenced it. Liam noticed. "You should answer," he said gently. She shook her head. "There's nothing left to say." He looked at her with quiet sadness, then said, "Sometimes silence says everything." Emily's eyes met his, and for a brief second, it felt like the world stopped. Two people caught between what they wanted and what they shouldn't. She finally broke the silence with a shaky breath. "Liam, whatever this is, it can't happen." He nodded slowly. "I know, but that doesn't stop it from being real." His words hit her harder than she expected, because deep down she knew he was right. What she felt wasn't a fantasy. It was the painful truth of a connection that came too late. When he left that night, the room felt heavier than ever. She stood by the window again, watching him disappear into the rain. She told herself it was the last time she'd see him. She even meant it. But when she lay down to sleep, her phone buzzed once more. A message from Liam. "If you ever feel lonely again, just say my name." Her heart thudded. She didn't reply. But she didn't delete it either. Because sometimes silence doesn't mean no, it just means not yet. The next evening, as the sun began to set, Emily heard another knock. She opened the door and froze. It wasn't Liam. It was Daniel, and his eyes looked colder than she'd ever seen before. What happens when the truth you've been hiding suddenly stands right at your door? Emily froze, her hand still on the door handle. Daniel stood there, suitcase by his side, eyes scanning her face like a man searching for proof of something he already feared. The air turned heavy in an instant. She forced a smile. "You're home early," she said softly. Daniel stepped inside without a word. "Flight got canceled," he said, setting his suitcase down. His tone was flat, unreadable. The silence between them felt louder than thunder. Emily's heart raced. Her phone, still lying on the counter, had Liam's unread message glowing faintly on the screen. She quickly turned it face down before Daniel noticed. He looked around the house, calm but watchful. "You've been busy," he said, glancing at the fresh flowers on the table, the baked muffins on the counter. "Did you make those?" She nodded. "A friend dropped them off." He raised an eyebrow. "A friend?" She felt her throat tighten. "From the neighborhood." Daniel gave a small, knowing smile, the kind that carried questions he didn't ask. "Nice," he said simply, walking to the living room. That night they sat at dinner, pretending things were normal. But every clink of the fork, every pause in conversation, made Emily feel like she was standing on a thread ready to snap. Daniel spoke about work, new projects, new cities. But his words barely registered. Emily's thoughts kept drifting to Liam. The way he listened, the way he cared, the way her heart had felt awake for the first time in years. She hated herself for it. Yet the feeling wouldn't go away. After dinner, Daniel went to take a shower. Emily checked her phone quickly. Another message from Liam. "I'm worried. You haven't replied. Are you okay?" She typed back, "Daniel came home." He replied almost instantly. "Do you want me to stay away?" Emily stared at those words. Her hands trembled as she typed, "Maybe just for now." Then she deleted it, rewrote it, deleted it again. Finally, she left the phone face down and walked away. The next morning, Daniel left for a meeting. "I'll be gone most of the day," he said. His tone was calm, too calm. As soon as he left, Emily exhaled, a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The silence of the house felt different now, almost guilty. She made coffee and sat near the window. The street outside was quiet, then her phone buzzed. A simple text from Liam. "I'm outside." Her heart skipped. She opened the curtain slightly. And there he was, standing near the gate, holding a brown paper bag. She hesitated. Every voice in her head said, "Don't do this," but her feet moved anyway. When she opened the door, Liam smiled softly. "I didn't mean to intrude," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right," she sighed. "You shouldn't be here." "I know," he said. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you." His words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. Emily looked down. "Daniel came home last night. He's suspicious." Liam nodded slowly. "Then I'll go," he said. But his eyes said something else. Something that made it hard for her to let him leave. She shook her head. "Wait, just for a minute." They sat in the kitchen again like old friends. He handed her the bag, her favorite pastries from the cafe downtown. "Peace offering," he said with a faint smile. Emily laughed softly, though her heart wasn't calm. "You really don't give up easily, do you?" "Not when something feels right," he replied. His honesty made her chest tighten. There was no game in his words, just sincerity. Something she hadn't heard in a long, long time. They talked again, about work, life, dreams. Every minute made her forget the world outside those walls. For a brief moment, it felt like the life she'd been missing had found its way back to her. Then came the sound. The faint, unmistakable sound of keys at the door. Emily froze. Daniel wasn't supposed to be back until evening. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. "He's here," she whispered. Liam's eyes widened. He glanced toward the back door. "I'll leave through the kitchen," he said quickly. But before he could move, the front door opened. Daniel stepped in, his expression unreadable. "Forgot my files," he said casually, but his eyes darted straight to Liam. The room fell silent. "Who's this?" Daniel asked, his tone calm but sharp. Emily swallowed hard. "This is Liam. He delivers groceries sometimes." Daniel looked at the bag on the counter. The fresh pastries, the familiar smell. "Groceries?" he repeated, his eyes narrowing slightly. Liam stepped forward, polite but firm. "Yes, sir. I brought Mrs. Morgan her usual order." Daniel's stare lingered. Then, without another word, he grabbed his folder from the table and left, closing the door quietly behind him. The silence that followed was unbearable. Emily's hands shook as she gripped the counter. Liam exhaled. "I should go," he said. She nodded, unable to speak. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Emily," he said softly, "you don't deserve to live like this, waiting for love that never comes back." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "You don't understand, Liam. It's not that simple." "Maybe not," he said gently. "But sometimes doing nothing hurts more." When he left, the house felt heavier than ever. She stood by the window, watching him disappear down the street, the paper bag still on the counter, untouched, like the words she couldn't say. Hours later, Daniel returned. He didn't mention Liam, didn't ask questions, but something in his behavior had changed, quieter, colder, as if he'd already decided what to believe. That night, Emily lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her mind was a storm. Guilt, confusion, longing, fear. She wanted peace, but peace felt farther than ever. She reached for her phone, almost without thinking, and typed, "Liam, I'm sorry." Then she deleted it. A few seconds later, another message appeared from him instead. "Are you okay?" She didn't reply, but her tears did. The next day, Daniel left early again. No goodbye kiss, no warmth, just silence. Emily walked to the kitchen, only to find a small envelope on the table. Inside was a folded note. It read, "We need to talk tonight." Her hands trembled. She tried to distract herself through the day, but nothing helped. Every tick of the clock made her heart beat louder. Evening approached slowly, painfully. When the door finally opened, Daniel walked in quietly, his face unreadable. "We'll talk after dinner," he said. His tone wasn't angry. It was worse, calm. Emily tried to cook, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Just as she set the table, her phone buzzed again. A message from Liam. "I can't stop thinking about you. Please, just tell me you're okay." She stared at it, her mind spinning. Before she could hide it, Daniel walked into the kitchen. His eyes caught the phone screen. Silence. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out of the room. Emily's heart sank. The sound of the door closing echoed like thunder. She picked up her phone, trembling. Her world was collapsing, and she didn't know how to stop it. She typed one final message to Liam. "You shouldn't have texted." Before she could hit send, a notification popped up. A new message. Not from Liam, from Daniel. It read, "We really do need to talk, but not tonight." Emily froze as she read the final line of the message. "You'll know when I'm home again." What happens when the person you've been running from is the same one you once promised to love forever? The next few days felt endless for Emily. Daniel had left again. No explanation, no goodbye, just silence. His note still sat on the counter, folded neatly, mocking her with its emptiness. Every knock, every buzz of her phone made her jump. She didn't know whether to fear his return or long for it. The house felt colder now. Even the morning light seemed duller. She tried to go about her day, cleaning, reading, cooking. But nothing felt real anymore. The air carried the weight of things unsaid, things done, things broken. Then, out of nowhere, another message appeared on her phone. Liam. Emily, please talk to me. I didn't mean for things to get complicated. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She knew responding would only make things worse, but silence was worse too. Finally, she typed, "It's not your fault. I just don't know what to do anymore." He replied instantly, "Then let me see you. Just one last time. I promise, no questions, no pressure." She read those words over and over. Every sensible part of her said no. But her heart, tired, broken, searching, whispered yes. That evening, as the sun began to fade, she walked toward the little cafe on the corner. It was quiet, nearly empty. Liam was already there, sitting by the window with 2 cups of coffee. When she entered, his face lit up in relief. "You came," he said softly. "I almost didn't," she replied. They sat in silence for a moment, just looking at each other. Then she sighed. "Everything's falling apart, Liam. I don't even know who I am anymore." He leaned forward, his eyes gentle. "You're someone who deserves peace, Emily. You just forgot that for a while." His words broke something inside her. Not in pain, but in clarity. For months she had been living between 2 worlds, one where she was pretending to be fine, and another where she was finally feeling alive. And both were slowly destroying her. "I can't keep doing this," she said quietly. "Daniel doesn't love me anymore, but I can't throw away everything we built." Liam nodded. "I know. But don't lose yourself trying to save something that doesn't want to be saved." She looked down at her coffee, fighting back tears. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not easy," he said. "It's just honest." They talked for hours, about choices, guilt, the strange way life twists when you least expect it. There was no flirting this time, no tension, only 2 hearts trying to make sense of the mess they'd created. When it was time to leave, Liam stood and looked at her one last time. "Whatever happens, Emily, I just want you to remember, you still have a right to be happy." She nodded, unable to speak. Outside, the air was cool, the night calm. As she walked home, she felt strangely lighter. For the first time in months, she wasn't running. Not from Daniel, not from Liam, not from herself. But peace never lasts long when truth is waiting. As she reached her porch, she saw something on the ground, a small white envelope. Her name written in Daniel's handwriting. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a short note. "I know everything. Don't wait up." Her heart stopped. The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. She sat down on the porch steps, reading the note again and again, hoping she'd misunderstood. But she hadn't. Daniel knew. For a long moment, she couldn't move. The guilt she'd been burying came crashing back like a wave. She hadn't cheated, not physically, but emotionally. She knew she had crossed a line. The next morning, there was no word from Daniel. His phone went straight to voicemail. His office said he'd taken a few days off. She didn't know where he was or what he was thinking. Every minute felt like waiting for a storm to hit. By afternoon, a message came through. It was Daniel. "We need to talk, tonight." Her chest tightened. She didn't know if it was the end or a chance to start again. She spent hours preparing for that talk, rehearsing what she'd say, cleaning the house as if tidiness could hide the chaos inside her. The clock ticked slowly toward evening. When Daniel finally walked in, he looked different, tired, distant, but not angry. He sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "I don't want to fight," he began. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "I just need to understand what happened." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Nothing happened, Daniel. Not the way you think. I just felt alone." He nodded, staring at the table, and he filled that space. She didn't deny it. He listened. "That's all. He saw me when you didn't." Daniel took a long breath, then leaned back. You're right. I stopped seeing you a long time ago. Work, travel, excuses. I thought providing was enough. But I guess I forgot to be your person. His honesty caught her off guard. For a moment, the weight between them shifted. Not forgiveness, but recognition. Two people realizing how far apart they'd drifted. So what now? She asked quietly. I don't know, he said. But maybe we both need time to figure that out. Separately. Her heart sank. You're leaving? For a while, he said. Not because I hate you. Because I don't want to start hating you. He stood up, walked to the door, and paused. Emily, just promise me one thing. Don't run from this. Face it. For once, choose yourself. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut, and Emily stood there, silent. No tears, no anger, just a strange calm. That night, she sat by the window again, watching the rain fall, the same way it had the day Liam first knocked on her door. Everything had come full circle, except now she wasn't the same woman. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Liam. Are you all right? She stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. I will be. Someday. She placed the phone aside and opened her journal. For the first time, she began to write. Not about Daniel, not about Liam, but about herself. Her fears, her hopes, her mistakes. And somewhere between the lines, she began to find peace. Days turned into weeks. Daniel stayed away and she didn't reach out. Liam moved to another city for his new job. Life became quieter, simpler. But one afternoon, as Emily sat at her favorite cafe sipping coffee and reading, she heard the soft jingle of the doorbell. She looked up and froze. Liam stood there smiling, holding a single white envelope. He walked over and placed it on her table. This came to my old address, he said. She opened it. Inside was a familiar handwriting. Daniel's. The note read, I hope you found what you were looking for. Her heart trembled. She looked at Liam, who gave a faint, understanding smile. You okay? He asked. She nodded slowly. I think so, he hesitated. So, is this goodbye or a new beginning? Emily looked at the note again, then at him. Maybe it's neither, she said softly. Maybe it's just me, finally learning to begin again. They sat there quietly, the past fading like the evening sun outside the window. As Liam stood to leave, Emily noticed another folded paper under the envelope, one she hadn't seen before. It wasn't from Daniel. It was from someone else. And on it, in neat handwriting, were just 4 words. You were never alone.